such a young roster coming into this, but you have to remember that KaBuM went through the exact same thing at MSI play-ins. They dropped both of their games on day number 2. They were only able to pick up that 1 victory, and whilst they went undefeated for the rest of the play-in stage, it was not enough to get them through. They need to start well today.
Getting into Champion Select now to start things off for Worlds 2018. Let's see what they're going to go about banning. Vel'Koz and Shen banned away by Cloud9. KaBuM banning the Alistar and the Camille. Vel'Koz, one of those champions you don't always see bans against, but sometimes in these specific situations, the enemy team might pull it out as a special kind of pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Chitan was willing to pick that up in the AD carry position, or the traditional marksman role, I guess. Really good poke, and KaBuM as a lineup, if they do get Baron, are able to exploit the siege in lanes very well. That's something that Sneaky probably not used to, just get it off the board.
And I like seeing Cloud9 adapt to that big, different style of play immediately and get it off the table. North America had a tragically difficult time against Heimerdinger in the bottom lane during Rift Rivals, and making sure they don't have to play against something tricky like that, I think their heads are in the right place. It's Akali, it's Kindred the last couple of bans, as Cloud9 will first pick the Kaisa.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, get rid of some of Blaber's more aggressive picks, but Cloud9 just need to come in with a team-fighting slow tempo comp. I think that if you just build the game time up, as Mark was saying on the desk, you know, get the rookies used to this stage and just slowly play your way in. You are more skillful. You come into this lineup, you are the heavy favorites. There needs to be a good early game for KaBuM to latch onto. They need to be able to take over that top side of the map, start knocking down turrets for them to have success.
Well, if you want to take over the top lane, you're talking about heavies. They're bringing in the big guns. It's Urgot for Zantins, 3 picks on this during his play in summer, 100% win rate on the champion. Especially for a team like KaBuM that likes to control Rift Heralds and have that top side of the map, this could be big.
And this is something that I was expecting to see as well. The Lucian pick up immediately for their AD carry. Chitan is aggressive. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, this guy, his support pretty much just picks saved Chitan champions. You know, big Tahm Kench, big Braum player, because he's willing to fly into the backline, will look to be super aggressive, and I think that this is a lane that now Sneaky has to be aware of.
And on the opposite side, Cloud9 now with their second pick, you first pick the champion for your long-standing veteran, but now your second pick goes over to the guy, one of those rookies, one of those newer players that Aatrox picked up for Licorice, the man who has been the rock for this team throughout this split. Cloud9 utilized a 10-man roster, swapping players in and out from the main roster and the academy. Licorice being the exception to that rule, never got replaced by his academy counterpart, has helped carry this team through rough times, and putting him on something like the Aatrox will enable him to make some plays.
Yeah, it certainly should, and I mean, just has such a solid early game, now has been buffed to have some more late game power on the current patch. So I think that, you know, that's a very smart pickup. I think that Cloud9 right now are just trying to secure some strong lanes. Kaisa, not necessarily the strongest laner, so they do need somewhere for this Zeyzal to be able to play around.
Zeyzal locked in for the jungle of Cloud9. The response from KaBuM, picking up the Olaf in the jungle. Another strong early jungler, does well having those pushing lanes.
And I was actually chatting to VODS off camera earlier, and I said, what do you think that the jungle meta is going to be? You know, are we going to see Gragas, Sejuani? Because a lot of these teams are now starting to pick up Zeyzal. Lee Sin seeing a resurgence. Olaf, another one of those picks that has very good early game clear. And I think that the fact that we're seeing Blaber take Zeyzal means that his invade is going to be so strong. If he is able to get a pushing lane for Jensen, get into that top side of the jungle, he could really give this Olaf some problems.
And I applauded Cloud9 earlier for banning out the Vel'Koz, keeping that away from Chitan, disabling the ability to play that strategy for KaBuM. And right now, I like what we're seeing from KaBuM going into the second part of the bans. They're saying, we know Blaber is the aggro jungler. We know he likes to flash in like Reaper was talking about. Let's stop Jensen's ability to support that as well. Ban out the Galio, keep that off the table.
Yeah, I'd expect maybe a Zillion ban to come through here as well. Just continue that oppressive style. They've already got their damage threats on this lineup. They don't necessarily need one in the mid lane. Jensen still has Orianna potentially, so maybe not a pick that they're going to look to take away. But this Cloud9 lineup, when they do have avenues to play through, look good. The problem is that when the mid-game slows down, when they have to make those tricky decisions around their macro play, around their Baron setup, it doesn't necessarily look all that clean. And whilst that's not an area that I expect KaBuM to be able to punish them, they are a very good Baron team themselves.
Now, one thing I want to point out here that is probably Well, if nothing else, it's interesting. Cloud9 banned out Braum, final ban of the draft. That is easily Zeyzal's most played champion. 11 plays on the Braum, but they're picking up the fact that KaBuM probably wanted to grab that as their first pick in the second half here. They keep that away from them instead. Both players are going to have to go on to something else, and for the side of KaBuM, it's going to be the Pyke.
Yeah, and I think it's just because Lucian Braum is such a potent lane.
It's so strong.
And if you're going to look to play through a bottom lane, you probably couldn't ask for something better than a Lucian Braum, maybe a Zaya Rakan, something around those lines. Pyke makes a lot of sense. Just such a strong champion on the current patch.
I mean, Pyke's a playmaker. He has a lot of kill potential at level 6. Lucian's very strong. We already talked about how aggressive Chitan is. And you mentioned how Kaisa isn't exactly this dominant laner. If this KaBuM bottom lane could really go off, if they can find the spark that starts the fire, these are two champions that roll one hell of a snowball.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I mean, especially if the Leona's picked up here, that will only go further to kind of perpetuate this. Both of these bottom lanes, these supports, are so good at going forward. They're both pretty crappy at going backwards and peeling for their AD carry, to be honest. So I think that we will now see some fireworks around that bottom lane, especially with a Ryze, especially with a Zeyzal on the Cloud9 lineup. You can isolate Licorice. He's going to be fine in the 1v1 and really play around sneaky here if you want to.
Ryze picked up also means you've got a lot of roam, rotation, collapse, cutoff possibility with that ultimate coming into play. As KaBuM has one more champion to pick up. They were hovering the Zillion there for a moment, thinking about that one, but decide they want a bit more firepower instead. They go for a big AoE monster in the form of the Viktor.
I mean, just fantastic scaling coming out of Viktor. He was buffed. His augmentations are now cheaper as you go through the game, so still look for dyNquedo to be able to pick those up. Not a great early game laner. I think that, 2-second snare coming through from Ryze means that, the cleanse pickup is going to have to be there. This is an area now where Cloud9 can look towards Jensen, can look towards Blaber in the early game. But as that lane progresses, Viktor has legitimate one-shot potential against 80 carries that have, sub 500 range. And Kaisa really does have to get all up in your grill to be able to be effective in these team fights. So Sneaky going to have to play on that edge of, aggressive enough to be able to take over, but not so aggressive that he gets double lift. Like just one-shot Viktor in the face.
We try to forget about that one over here. We try
not back where I'm from.
We try to delete that memory over here on this side of the world. We don't want to remember that. But one thing that I'm looking at going into this game, for those of you who weren't here for our check-in earlier on in the analyst desk, Spawn has the very fun fact of reminding all of us, how many kills was it that KaBuM showed us on their last international game?
75.
75.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. There was a top lane Rammus and triple AD carry on the other team, so, potentially counterpicked. Of course, that game wasn't for anything, but the impressive games before that was the ability to fight back versus the direwolf. So I think that this is a lineup that has shown great grit and determination, and they have been very successful domestically until they got into best of fives, where they have gone 3-2 in both of their finals. So this KaBuM lineup, if they start well, I actually have a lot of faith in to be able to make it through this play-in stage.
And going up against Cloud9, a team that, as we saw earlier, some of the discussion about this team was how they had such a rough early start to their summer split. Things were going bad. They were dead last. Week 4, Week 5, a summer split. They turn it around. They go on a massive win streak in a best-of-1 environment. They know how to play those games as well. And because both of these compositions feel so similar, strong early game junglers, scrappy top laners, bot lane supports that just want to go in, there's some explosive potential in this game.
Yeah, there certainly is. And I think the other thing you do have to point out for both of these lineups is how well coached they are. Reaper, coach of the split in North America, had the faith of the organization behind him, now repaid it, as you said, with that 8-game win streak. But also on the side of KaBuM, you have Hero, previously Team WE, previously the Chaogu Reapers, both very good teams within the LPL ecosystem, has brought this young lineup up, and I think that they play their style of League of Legends incredibly well.
And that's something that I think always comes into the conversation. When you hit big international tournaments, you only really get to see these big international tournaments twice a year with MSI and Worlds, and so often it's styles collide. And can you play to your style going up against these different ways of playing League of Legends? And all too often, you see teams try to change up what they're doing to copy what they think is a superior style, but sticking to your guns can just bring you a lot of success.
Well, I actually think that's what both of these teams do really well. You've got Sneaky playing things like Quinn, things like Twitch. You've got the Hecarim innovation in the top lane. You have that aggressive jungle position. So I think that Cloud9 certainly have their own style, even in a major region. And KaBuM at the same time, the aggression, the control around Baron, how quickly they end games once they have picked up that objective. You have to say that they're also willing to stick to their guns and play through that strength as well.
Speaking of sticking to your guns, you got to talk about the two guys on your screen right now, Cheaton and Sneaky. The comparison between these two, Sneaky being this long-standing member of Cloud9. Cloud9 has had 6 Worlds appearances in a row now. KaBuM now being the second team from the CB LoL to appear on the world stage. Well, the first team to appear a second time on the world stage, I should say instead. But both of these players are so critical to the way their teams play. Jensen trading there with dyNquedo in the mid lane. And talking about these two, one thing about dyNquedo, this guy has some solid stats. He puts up some good numbers, but his kills and assists at 15 minutes are very low. He's a passive farmer in the early game, and I want to see if Cloud9 can exploit that as Blaber decides he wants to invest some time here in the top side.
Yeah, it certainly did. Really nice clear out of Blaber. Double Scuttle Crab for the level 3 into the gank top lane. This should work.
See if he can find any sort of a summoner spell pop, if nothing else. Zantins gonna be in some trouble there, taking a lot of damage. Chain's looking to force him back, has to flash away, still loses a lot of the health.
Yeah, and I think that was a little bit disrespectful from Zantins. I think he should have just flashed at the start, tried to preserve some of that health, because now he's had to burn all the corrupting pot charges. That wave is gonna push into his turret, and that gank, as soon as you were that far behind the Urgot, was always going to be a successful gank. So now his lane's just in a horrible position.
Not to mention, he got him at level 2. He got him before he had the ability to dash away or throw Blaber back into the range of the turret. It was very well timed from him. So Zantins is just kind of not having the best time. Now 12 CS compared to 23. Of course, he has a few waiting on him there that he'll be able to farm up as Jensen will chase dyNquedo down towards the bottom part of the lane here. Ranger moving around, but Jensen low on mana isn't going to be trying to pursue this fight any further.
So this is a good read from Ranger. He knows that the Zeyzal is a much better Scuttle Crab taker than him. He farms much quicker, however, on the Olaf, and once he sees the CS topside, he knows that there's a Raptor camp up, he knows that there is also Krugs up, and the bottom lane has so much priority, so the Pyke's gonna get there first. So I think that the ability to duck in, take away that camp, sure, is it the same value as the Flash? Definitely not, but he's gonna have to take those small victories to be able to farm this Olaf up and, you know, become that mid-game powerhouse.
And when both of your champions revolve around the early and mid-game, I mean, nobody's telling tales about the Zhao and Olaf late-game carry potential. Every single one of those decisions, every single one of those reads will mean that much more, because it means at that critical point in the game, you will be more relevant, you will be more farmed up, and you'll be able to do what your team drafted you to do. As Jensen will utilize the teleport here, coming back into mid lane after going back to base, purchasing the tier. Of course, that's the price break point. Ryze wants to make sure he hits. The Viktor would love to get the first Hex Tech upgrade when he goes back.
Yeah, absolutely would. And I think that the big thing for the Ryze is, you know, with the corrupting pot start, now just has such a safe laning phase. You know, with the tier, gonna be a gank.
Finds a little bit of damage onto Licorice, but honestly, nothing to really write home about. Licorice doesn't have to spend any summoner spells on that one.
Yeah, Blaber also took a look mid lane, you know, with that 2-second snare, as we said. Very nice hook, however.
Oh, Riyev looking to start this one up. Zeyzal's going to be in some trouble, taken rather low, doesn't blow any summoner spells, none coming out from the other side either. Cheaton had shop, Sneaky had not.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Teleport on the 80 carry is something that, you know, we've seen a lot this year. Sneaky obviously going with the heal. That's why there was no flash coming out of Riyev to guarantee that stun and try and follow up for the kill. But the ability to force back and now potentially chunk out Sneaky, this is something that Cloud9 actually did against Team Liquid. They were able to pick up that first kill versus Doublelift. Instead, Riyev trying to go for a roam towards mid lane, see if he can catch himself a Jensen.
We know Pyke is a very adept roamer, can set up plenty of plays, has a lot of mobility around the map. But Riyev won't find any success on that one right now. Instead, it's Cheaton who's just completely controlling this bottom part of the map right now, zoning Sneaky away even from that outermost turret. As Riyev's going to rotate around, make sure that Zeyzal's not able to find an angle onto Cheaton here. Cheaton finds some damage onto Sneaky, but eats a couple turret shots for his trouble. With Zeyzal back in the lane now, he'll utilize those extra Relic Shield procs to make sure Sneaky can farm up. And for Sneaky's sake, he wants to just farm this all up, get back to base, get himself a buy. but Zeyzal's going to be going in, looking to force this fight out.
Very
Sneaky
nice
in some
sword.
trouble, having to flash away. Ignite down onto both AD carries. Zeyzal still looking to find the fight on this one, won't be able to get the damage. Void Seeker does not connect with that enemy AD carry, but they're both so hungry for blood.
Yeah, and the reason Zeyzal went for that fight is because Cheetan did not have mana. He's got himself the shield, he's got himself the Vamp Scepter. He can stay in this lane and sustain up as long as he wants, but without mana, I mean, Lucian's that gunslinger. He just needs it to be able to go for the early skirmishes. I think that was a great read from Zeyzal, but the guaranteed hook coming out of Riyev was just what kind of turned that one around. Overall, pretty big victory, to be honest, for KaBuM, because they're going to get a second shot into both members of their bottom lane.
And while they do have the second shop compared to just the one shop, on the side of Cloud9, Sneaky did go back after having farmed up enough to get the BF sword price breakpoint, so it's not as bad as it could be if he would have been shy of that and had to settle for smaller itemization. Wouldn't have been as good if he had to go for long swords or a dagger for that Stormrazor. Back in the mid lane though, dyNquedo maintaining a slight EXP advantage over Jensen, who will hit level 7 after 1 or 2 more minions. Don't make a liar out of me. There we go. Ryze hits the level 7, and remember, I am still watching, especially Jensen's rotations, being on a champion that has the ultimate that enables that, going up against a player who specifically doesn't get that involved in the fights early on in the game. Can Jensen find an advantage through there? But right now it seems to be KaBuM, who are trying to set up a play with support and jungler together.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Riyev has just been out of his lane a couple of times, now picks up the Moby boots even before upgraded tier, just shows what they want to be able to do. They want to be able to team up on the map. Big surprise for me right now is the fact that Blaber is like 3 camps up on a Zhao, who shouldn't be able to out-farm an Olaf at this stage of the game. So, you know, complimented Ranger earlier for his lead, but has spent a lot of time looking for these ganks where Olaf probably not going to be all that successful without the hard CC of maybe, you know, the Pyke coming with him, potentially the Urgot in the top lane, but now that that level 6 is there for Licorice, that's a very hard kill.
As you can see, Ranger and dyNquedo wanting to rotate over to secure this Scuttle Crab for the side of KaBuM, only to find that Licorice has already taken the crab and managed to get himself out just in time. Right back up to the top lane. Misses a couple minions to the turret there. But keep that Scuttle Crab away from your opponents. Always going to be nice. KaBuM, no play towards the blue buff, just dropping down the ward in that enemy jungle instead. 8 minutes into the game, still no first blood. It's a 300-400 gold advantage for the side of Cloud9, who have found that lead through the farm, the jungle, and the top lane. More violence going down here on the bottom side. Zeyzal not able to find that ulti that he wanted onto Riyev. Looking to go in before that enemy support hit level 6. Cheetan gets some good damage with the piercing light, but it won't go much further.
Yeah, and that was really interesting because Riyev was the one starting that up, right? Very confident the fact that he doesn't have ultimate versus double ultimate to look for the fight, but the mobility of Pyke just means he's so hard to tie down. And I think that this bottom lane, you know, being up in CS against the veteran of Sneaky is going to be an important factor, because if you don't make Lucian work at this stage of the game, he's just not working. He is so low in mobility, you know, he's going to get blown up, and potentially going to be a gank coming through here from Blaber. The early game vision from both of these teams has honestly been quite good, and just isolated these junglers meant that it is just going to be that farming battle. And I think that that would suit Cloud9. As we said, they've got the composition where they just want to be able to send Jensen into that side lane, create pressure, good team fight coming out of the core. And I think that KaBuM now have to start thinking about where do we look for that opening to be able to get some advantage in this early game.
And I'm going to go back to what you mentioned during Champion Select about how when you compare Sneaky and Cheetan and the explosive capabilities of these bottom lanes, how you would expect the mid laners to look down there, leave top lane on an island. Well, that island is flying the Cloud9 flag right now, because Licorice is up 20 CS in this vacuum after getting that first gank from his jungler. These are not fights that are ever going the way of Zantins, and Cloud9 perfectly happy with that situation right now.
Yeah, they certainly are, and I think, you know, that just speaks volumes to how good Licorice is at the moment. He's one of those players that filling the shoes of impact is always going to be a tough ask, and that was the last international top laner that we saw. Actually, Zantins, Pyke again.
Blaber wants to go in on this one, does find a little bit of damage, looking to find the knock up there as well. Wind becomes lightning, makes its way onto the Urgot, but Zantins still gets back. Enemy jungler topside though, it's a good read from KaBuM, recognizing the ability to go for the Earth Drake, grab that one for themselves.
I actually think it was a flip. I actually think they saw Ranger go into the pit. He started up Dragon. They were like, we don't have priority down here. We don't want to be fighting with our Kaisa right now. Instead, let's get all this damage on the top lane turret. That might even fall down. First turret plus a Rift Herald, something that Cloud9 are notoriously bad at taking, by the way, is going to be a massive boon for the top side of the map.
Licorice just fine, proxy farming between the turrets, doesn't need his own wave. Aatrox abilities do so much damage, you can just completely nuke the wave down there. As now it's Jensen thinking about coming up to the top side here. If Zantins goes too close to this and that turret's about to fall, Cloud9 can definitely collapse onto him here. Although he has a dash built into the kit, it doesn't go very far, and you root yourself for half a second beforehand. He won't save it. Cloud9 are going to find themselves back-to-back objectives, the turret into the Rift Herald.
And you have to really applaud Jensen's map movement there. Didn't pop himself over the wall with the blast plan, go for the gank, because the turret was a real objective, and he knew that would leave Blaber exposed, and actually they go in.
Bottom side is going to be Team CC into the damage, baby. They blow him up, and that is first blood of Worlds over to Cloud9.
Yeah, it certainly is, and everything just going Cloud9's favor at the moment. They've got themselves the 2,000 gold lead. First objective, first neutral. Actually, no, Dragon went over, but first Rift Herald as well as first blood. Certainly a good way to start.
2,000 gold ahead, 12 minutes in. Let's take another look at this from Zeyzal.
Yeah, and I think that Riyev had really been flirting with this play because he's been able to dash away a couple of times. As soon as you get hit by Zenith Blade and the ultimate is available for the Leona, you're just dead. You see all the follow-up damage that comes out of Sneaky with a Sunlight passive procs, but that's just great, I guess, capitalization on how aggressively this Pyke was playing the laning phase.
And this plays into what we talked about. When you've got two supports whose job is go in and kill the other team, once one gets ahead, the other one's game plan becomes significantly more difficult.
Well, generally the game plan becomes you're on your own 80 carry, I'm going somewhere else because they can't deal with this anymore. So be interesting to see if Riyev once again tries to get towards this mid lane. You can see dyNquedo is farming up quite okay, and I think that this is probably the last area that they can look to make something happen because everywhere else is a disaster zone.
Yeah, top lane has been broken down. Bottom lane just gave over first blood. Jungle still a slight farm lead for Blaber over Ranger, but not quite as severe as it was earlier. Jensen maintaining that slight farm lead there in the mid lane over dyNquedo as well. Licorice just continues to farm up here in this top side, pushing up, applying pressure as bottom side, Sneaky versus Cheaton. Even, dead even in farm, 124 to 124. I'm still just waiting to see these guys. I want to see one big 80 carry versus 80 carry showdown by the time the dust settles on them.
Yeah, I think that we probably will get one because Cheaton is one of those players that will stay solo, has some of the highest solo deaths, in fact, at Worlds, but I think that Sneaky just knows what his role is in this composition now. The 1-3-1 is certainly going to be online. If a team fight ever does break out, he can make it there first, and I don't really think that the pressure is on the bottom lane of Cloud9 anymore to make the play because with Rift Herald, they should be able to take down this mid lane turret when they go for it. You can see even the pressure out of Zeyzal just to be able to zone away Cheaton from that bottom lane turret. KaBuM really are on the back foot.
They're playing respectfully. I like the fact that Cheaton backed away, even though he had his jungler bottom side, so they knew that if nothing else, they would at least get a 3v3 there if the enemy jungler showed up, and now they're looking to start the fight off anyway. Riyev flashing away. Even in the 3v2, afraid of the damage potential, remembering what happened last time and getting the hell out of dodge. Blaber into the mid lane looking to find the damage. Not going to make it happen. dyNquedo flashing out, stays alive.
That was really nice from Blaber because all he has to do right now is drop Rift Herald. They've got Licorice there already. And this is going to be at minimum a charge onto the second turret because 3 members were still bottom for the KaBuM lineup.
dyNquedo will try to clear as much of this away as he can, but Shelly has already veered back for the charge, and there you go, half the HP off the tier 2. Cloud9's macro game continues to shine so far. 15 minutes here in this first game.
And Licorice has been so safe that he is pushing to the tier 2, then walking through the jungle and putting extra pressure. Again, a skirmish.
Meanwhile, bottom side, Riyev just cannot get away from these two. Now Cheaton, low on mana, gets himself away. Not going to be worried about dying himself just yet. Ranger positioning himself to maybe make a counterattack happen here. May run into Jensen there in the river, has to flash over the wall.
I mean, that's a very decisive play. You got to applaud that. Flashing just immediately, knew he was cut off. That ward just around the corner of Dragon has survived twice without being swept. And this is what we were talking about. When you're in a neutral lane where they both want to do the same thing, it becomes a 50-50. Now that Cloud9 are ahead, Zeyzal just walks at it. Like, you just got staunched and killed, and there was no follow-up whatsoever that was going to come out of Cheaton. This is not the lane that they should be looking to 2v2 anymore.
You see the Pyke channel Q, you just say, all right, hook me, bro. What's up? Just walk up, stun him up, bring him down. The Cloud9 plan working out here in the bottom lane. Cheaton's still doing a good job maintaining the farm advantage. Also, almost has the Cloud9 tier 1 turret down. Both kills so far this game have been Cloud9's bottom lane killing KaBuM's bottom lane, but it's KaBuM who have had enough control over the lane, keeping Cloud9 back, that they've got equal farm. They almost have that turret out of the picture, so it's not like they're irrelevant down here. They're making as much happen as they can.
Yeah, they certainly are trying, but the big thing is that if you were going to have a 6-item carry, and it was going to be a Kaisa or a Lucian, I would take Kaisa 10 out of 10 games.
I think most people would take Kaisa 10
where that is going to be a bad trade. So now when you add in the fact that it is 16 minutes into this game, and your Kaisa has 2 kills, you're happy.
Oh, Blaber's in some trouble though, gonna be taken down very low, suppressed right back into the grinder, and KaBuM are on the board.
Yeah, certainly are, and once again, they're looking bottom lane.
Zeyzal's in some trouble now as Sneaky will be forced to retreat all the way back into the fight. Zeyzal draws into the Eclipse Shield, trying to get back underneath the turret, keep himself alive, will not do it, and KaBuM has tied this game right up.
Yeah, and you gotta applaud Zancian's roam down there, willing to get out of his lane. He's down 60 CS, he's down a turret. He's not doing anything versus Licorice, but to be able to roam down, pick up 2 kills, they will be able to get themselves that second dragon of the game. The game is still heavily in Cloud9's favor, but all of a sudden you start thinking one team fight into 25-minute Baron. Double Mountain Drake is only going to make that easier.
Right. I say the game's tied up, I'm talking about kills. Gold is still 3K in the lead of Cloud9. KaBuM has the 2 Earth Drakes, but this is the only really does something if you're ahead Drake.
Yeah.
They need to get that team fight. They need to have one of those big 5v5s that everything goes right, and then you can really start to take control of the driver.
It's also the Hail Mary Drake, you know, all of a sudden if you get Olaf and a Lucian in a pit, maybe with the attack speed that comes out of Olaf as he gets lower, you can start thinking about maybe sneaking a Baron away.
Desperation.
The desperation. I think that it's also the one Drake, if you have it, comebacks are easier if you do make the first play. Take another look at this. Blaber, he was just in no man's land.
Yeah, you're not getting that.
We heard on the test that they say he sometimes plays with his brain off. That was a real brain off moment that happened there. And I think that the fact that they also burn everything out of Sneaky and Zeyzal, didn't catch how that one actually started off, but it just looked like a straight 2v2, which shouldn't be happening at this stage of the game.
I mean, Avali's interview with Reaper talked about how, yeah, Blaber likes to go in, and sometimes on the world stage against these other teams, you go in and they say, oh, wait, bop, and you get in some trouble, and that's what happened. Blaber got bopped. So for the sake of Cloud9, you would hope that that's not something he'll continue doing, going too far deep into enemy territory without enough backup nearby, but for the sake of KaBuM, you're happy to see them make that punish, because it was a good collapse.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think the fact that the punish could have been worse for Cloud9, you know, Sneaky flashed away, but if the rotation was a little bit earlier, would have been a massive deal. There's still that one big question mark of like, how do you deal with Licorice now? I just don't know how they're going to be able to do that. All of the outer turrets have gone down. They're going to start pressing into Ranger's jungle now. Olaf with farm isn't the best champion. That's a face check.
This is the same spot that Blaber died last time. Licorice will commit the same sin. Tries to resurrect himself, wants to get away, not gonna do it. Cloud9, the same error twice in a row, the same punish coming in from KaBuM.
Yeah, and it's just because KaBuM isn't answering sideways. And Cloud9 are playing a little bit too impatient, you know? If that wave hits the turret and they haven't walked into the jungle at that point, you're just denying farm away from the KaBuM lineup. You're incrementally increasing that lead, but if you skip the step, if you go for the face check beforehand, all of a sudden, you know, you would argue that the kill probably is worthwhile at the moment. The strongest member of the Cloud9 lineup is now dead. This bottom lane turret's going to go down. And all of a sudden, KaBuM, you know, little by little, starting to try and claw their way back into this one.
All that work that was done earlier by Chiton, putting so much damage into that turret, means Zantins can just walk up, one-shot the thing, put more money into KaBuM's pockets, and now the gold lead back down to 3K, where it was ballooning up a little bit further. So KaBuM are doing a good job of staunching this bleeding, making sure that lead doesn't become unreasonable.
And Zanchin's the one that needs the gold right now. I mean, his lane opponent is 60 CS up over him and has the first turret gold. So the fact that he was a beneficiary of Chitan's, you know, earlier hard work, as we keep mentioning, is going to be a big deal as this game progresses, because I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, 2,000 of this gold, at least 1,500-ish, is sitting on the top laner right now. You can see he's got himself 2 completed items versus, you know, the 1.5, and he's only going to get better because of those recent buffs towards Aatrox.
And checking in on the items across the board, you can see fully completed, fully stacked Seraph's Embrace on the Ryze. Sneaky's up to 2 items there on the Kaisa. Still working on the second item over on the side of KaBuM with Chiton and the Lucian. The junglers, though. The junglers I'm looking at, because it's Warrior into Trinity Force on the Zhao, very carry-style build, means you're squishy when you go in. So Blaber's going to have to be very mindful of exactly when he goes in. Righteous Glory almost done for Rangers. Olaf is more playmaking potential there for him, but the Void Seeker's going to find him out, force him away from this Tri-Brush. And again, KaBuM just seems content sitting back and trying to farm right now. You can see all the wards they're placing down in their own jungle.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have to. At this stage, you know, they're going to have to look for probably 2.5 item spikes before they fight. Realistically, Cloud9's probably going to be towards 3 at that stage of the game. And Chitan, a little bit caught out here. I think a lot of the pressure now actually is going to be transferred to dyNquedo, someone that we haven't seen perform, I mean, brilliantly, I think, so far, but I mean, you know, Viktor, when he gets towards the late game, is going to be a legitimate threat.
We've got a pretty low kill game overall, 5 kills, 22
it's certainly not 75.
It's not, yeah, it's not 75. We're not on track for that one, but the stat that I mentioned earlier for dyNquedo that was very low for his kills and assists combined at 15 minutes, he averages 1.3, and he's currently 0, 0, and 0. Both mid laners, 0, 0, and 0. Not really contributing to the state of the game too much overall here, but plenty of farm on both of them. 254, 245. The only person doing more than that being Licorice on that Aatrox that has just been free farming in these side lanes the whole time. Cloud9 continues to maintain this tempo advantage. But going up against KaBuM, man, remember this is the team that made their claim to fame 4 years ago, taking down Alliance, and it was Cloud9 that benefited so much from that victory that KaBuM found. Now, 4 years later, it's 2018. They're both back here on the world stage, and their interests aren't so aligned anymore, my friend.
They certainly aren't, and I think that so far we've seen that Cloud9 is willing to slow the pace of the game down, and I think that, you know, if we keep juxtapositioning the pressure that's going to be on each of the lineups, you know, Cloud9, historic org, but they've got new players, so I think the slower tempo, I think that the pressure becomes now on KaBuM to. And once again, they don't have the best engage. There's all these things going against them, but I think they're looking for the play, you know, where is the 25-minute Baron? How can we start these fights? If we get stuck in this 1-3-1 and they just continually take away Rangers farm, you know, we're going to be tankless in this composition. It is going to be very hard for Zantins to be able to deal with the side lanes, and they have the RNG Drakes on their side.
Well, the TP's coming in. Cloud9 have already secured themselves the Infernal Drake. KaBuM did rotate bodies down here to see if they could do anything about it, but it looks like the call is to just back away. Fighting Cloud9 in open ground isn't really the call when you're 3,500 gold behind, so it's just victory with the Infernal Drake for Cloud9.
It's not even the 3,500 gold necessarily. It's, you know, look at the level discrepancy there is in the top lane. 2 levels is worth, you know, the 1,000 gold mark as well, so they're just starting to get in there, and Jensen's just been left alone on this top side of the map. He's continually pushing in. I like the fact that Cloud9 are just sticking to the 1-3-1 grind, you know, making KaBuM teleport around the map, drag them out. And eventually that means that the young Brazilian lineup probably is going to make a mistake.
Cloud9 now trying to control more of the Baron area. 24 minutes into the game means this is becoming more and more of a real possibility as we go on. Usually the super early Barons aren't going to happen that much, but if Cloud9 can set up control around here, if KaBuM is too afraid to walk past around where you're seeing these control wards right now, Cloud9 could sneak one away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't even think they need to sneak it. If they just hold this vision control, the face check is going to have to come through. And right now, Cloud9 would win the team fight. You know, Sneaky's sitting there, 2.5 items. He's spiked on the Kaisa, only going to get stronger. When you have a look at Jensen, you know, he's in the exact same boat, looking towards what will be a death cap as a 3rd item really is a luxury. That just shows how confident he is that they are going to stay ahead.
And talking about Jensen and getting those items, as Licorice goes in pretty hard here onto Zantins in the bottom lane. Chain will not pull him back, but you've got so much firepower on this Ryze. Let me go down the inventory of KaBuM right now and read off all the magic resistance items. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, there's none of them.
There's none. Not a single thing. Not a shoe, not a null magic mantle, not anything. And that means Jensen, 795 damage to minions. It's not going to be much less to a champion.
And he is about to face check, however, so he might be in some trouble.
Let's see if KaBuM can find the punish here. Not going to manage to land the hook onto him. Plenty of damage coming out from Jensen in return. Tries to throw down the Realm Warp. Looking to get himself away and will do it. Dodging away from the X marks the spot. Still going to be taken down by Ranger. Cloud9 coming in now for the counterattack. Blaber able to find some damage. Chiton is gone! As now they're looking to continue to fight even further. Ranger's going to be targeted, taken down almost Riyev barely getting himself away. Shutdown credit over to Blaber, and Cloud9 grab themselves 2 kills.
And the first real skirmish of Worlds, and Cloud9 come up so far ahead. Even the HP bars are there for them, and over the wall they go.
Oh, they take out another one. It's a killing spree for Blaber. Zantins gonna be the next one on the menu now. The chains come down, the flash goes out, over the wall he goes, still gonna be kept alive for now. dyNquedo looking to chase this one even further. Cleanse too early. Licorice goes over the wall. How you doing? Cuts him down. Zantins now in some trouble. This could be the last man standing. It's ace for Cloud9.
And that should just mean that Baron, you could see that they were looking for the play. They thought they had Jensen out of position, but it just wasn't to be. That gold lead only going to get work, and Cloud9 now breathe that big sigh of relief.
KaBuM win a lot of games through team fights in the mid-game, through being able to pull those off. But Cloud9 says not today. The lead was too much, and it all started with this attempt onto Jensen.
And this is what 131 does. It makes you make poor decisions. And you can see already there's 2 members behind the members of KaBuM. They're walking up through the jungle. So even if Jensen falls down, which he eventually does, it takes such a long time that this collapse is just already completed, and they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You know, only bottom lane outer turret is there. There's no escape through the jungle. There's no escape towards mid lane. And strength of Kaisa is you can follow up from anywhere, man. That was just a very nice play.
That Acer Predator replay really showed off, yeah, you can collapse and find the kill onto one guy, but if it takes too many resources, it still won't work. Cheetan now in some trouble. Cloud9 looking to make this one happen yet again. Riyev barely getting himself away, gonna be taken super low, does walk away from that one. Cloud9 expending the Leona ultimate there, but nothing else really thrown into that, as now they've got themselves the Baron buff. They've got everybody alive. They're 7,500 gold ahead, and KaBuM just has to be on full all-out defense.
And that's a little bit of a rush of blood play, to be honest. They saw a couple of people pushed up in a lane. They didn't have the waves to go with it. They went, maybe we can kill them. Blaber hooked up.
Has to pop the ultimate to keep himself alive. Is going to be yoinked backwards by the gravity field. Nice pickup there from KaBuM, getting themselves one for free. Now it might be Sneaky who's in some trouble. Has to use the killer instincts plus the flash to keep himself at bay. Zantins going into that stasis. Zeyzal going to be zoning everyone else away on the team. Going to be 1-for-1 overall in this delayed portion of the fight. Licorice wants to come in from the side. Overall, still okay for KaBuM, who did go even on that trade. But now, can they hold the line any longer? It looks like Cloud9 is going to say, no, sir, not today. Root comes through onto Riyev. Going to be forced back on that one. Sneaky still full HP, firing away onto this inhibitor, and that is inhib 1 down.
So the base is broken. That's the bad news for KaBuM. They will get a little bit more farm. That's kind of the good news.
I don't know if that makes up for losing the inhibitor.
I don't think it does either. You know, I'm trying to be the glass half full kind of guy right now.
The
problem
all right.
is the Aatrox on your screen. The kind of checklist right now for KaBuM is Licorice here? If no, we can make a play. If yes, just head for the hill.
Get the hell out.
Yeah, he's just zoning 3 people. Ranger actually wants to 1v1 him though.
Well, this might not be a get out kind of play. Can they hit this hook? No, they cannot. Licorice, however, he decides it's time to end their world, and he dunks Riyev right back into the brushes as Ranger has to get himself away. dyNquedo is now going to be in for a very nasty surprise as Blaber and Jensen show up. The cavalry has arrived, and Cloud9's got 3.
And what can I say? They didn't follow the checklist. Even if it is just Licorice, you shouldn't be looking for the play. This is certainly going to be at least a base broken in another position, and Cloud9 right now looks so confident in every play they take.
Cloud9 are 5 men strong, Baron buff ready, knocking on the door to top lane, knocking that sucker in. And now they might just be able to push for the win. They still have very long timers on the enemy mid laner, on the enemy jungler. They're on to Nexus turret number 1. It's taken down rapidly. Zeyzal starting things off. Cheetan's already out of the game, as Zantins will go into stoneplate mode, but it's only going to buy a couple more seconds. Cloud9 win the first game of Worlds 2018.
And I think more importantly for the North American squad, it was in decisive fashion.
Absolutely.
You know, first turret, first Rift Herald, first blood, 28-ish minute victory. That is just a statement on this group. Are we inexperienced? Yes, but we are confident in our playstyle. We are confident in our rookies' strengths, because once again, this was, you know, Licorice, this was Blaber making the big plays, and it was really Jensen and Sneaky just saying, all right, guys, go for it, and we'll clean up.
And Licorice and Blaber, yeah, you can say there were a couple overextensions in the enemy jungle in the mid-game, but if those were your biggest errors, KaBuM wasn't able to translate that into much of anything, and Cloud9 didn't get shook by it. They made sure that they still maintained the plan, and then when KaBuM did decide to bare fangs and strike back, it was Cloud9 who found the counterattack into that Baron.
And the problem that a lot of teams make when they go to tournaments like Worlds is they do nothing. And then you just slowly lose the game against superior opponents. If you're Cloud9, you're not sporting necessarily the most firepower when you look at teams like RNG, when you look at teams like KT, but what you are sporting is a lot of confident playmakers. And if you're able to get those early game advantages, if those shots that you take at the early stages of the game do work, then this is a team that can start thinking about doing some good damage.
And it was fun to watch them make those plays too. From Blaber going topside before the enemy top laner even has his level 3, has his ability to get away, setting that up, allowing Licorice to then have success through that. To bottom lane, Zeyzal just saying, okay, it's time to fight. Cloud9 knew what was going on there.
Yeah, and I think that's some mentorship. That pathing was actually really good from Blaber. You know, say what you want about his aggressive plays, he also played smart.
Well, to get their thoughts on how Cloud9 picked up that first win, let's hand things over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you so much, Captain Flowers. Indeed, there we go. First win at World 2018 for Cloud9.
We're on the board. We're doing it.
Can only get worse from it. No, just kidding. I have to say that I was really definitely impressed with the way Cloud9 handled that first game. Marks, if you like Marks, okay, we're gonna get this out. I'm going between Marks, and Mark C. I'm just gonna stick with Mark.
It's really fun just to watch people struggle initially to get it right.
Mark, as of course the resident NA analyst, what were kind of your overall feelings of the plan that C9 had and how they played this game out?
The first pick Kaisa told a lot to me, where they were saying, like, we want to make sure we have a good late game carry. I was initially debating maybe they should go for a stronger laner because we were a little concerned about Chitan's carry potential in lane. And you did see that come through a little bit here, but I did like ultimately with the idea of saying, like, we're going to pick better late game, and we don't believe you're going to be able to smash us in 25 minutes, and we're going to have that late game policy working for us.
And you had the insurance policy of the Ryze as well. Realm warp opportunities, teleport, so there's a lot of defense for the bottom lane. If there were ever a play to be made underneath the tower, double teleport would come through. So that's one large takeaway there. The Viktor to respond to the Ryze I enjoyed, but remember, he went towards the cleanse, which is incredibly important to just come into this because he's going to be incredibly far behind. He went Inspiration Tree, but didn't go into Futures Market, so he's going to be looking more so to actually sustain throughout the lane, but without the teleport because he was worried about the Leona lockdown alongside with the Realm of the Ryze snare. That he was just like, I'm going to keep myself up in lane, but I'm not going to be in position to help my team if there was ever a play in the bottom side.
And that maybe came back to them, the fact that Ranger, we said he was a bit underwhelming when we were looking at the game. He didn't visit the lanes that we wanted to. Maybe he had to help mid a bit too much, and he couldn't really make anything happen.
Yeah, I think the game plan out of KaBuM made a little bit of sense, where you try and have a bully top side, a bully bot side, and then you have Olaf, who's one of the best early game junglers, to try and make a play happen there. But Ranger didn't make any plays happen. His one gank on the top side didn't get anything done. His top lane was already getting smashed at that point. So it did feel a little underwhelming out of him.
Yeah, as a takeaway also, when I look at this draft, I was like, the amount of power picks and very, very strong picks that are being let onto the Rift is insane, with the Urgot, with the Aatrox, with the Ryze, with the Kaisa. And I think that also played into, well, C9's favor with then if one of those picks gets ahead and does well, we saw it in this case with the Aatrox, you're going to have a hard time if you are KaBuM. Now, we talked about the bottom lane a lot coming into this one. And even seeing this matchup, we thought, okay, what's going to happen there? Because they do have some potential on both sides to butt heads in the laning phase.
Yeah, and I thought that immediately, if you're looking towards KaBuM, it's actually a good indicator just on how aggressive, how confident you're looking at from Chitan. A little bit too confident.
Sometimes, yeah.
A little bit too much underneath.
Well, let's take a look at the first blood and the second blood, or what happened there in the bottom lane with Chitan. Of course, this is the engage by Cloud9 in the end.
But this is the issue, because the lane goes on for too long. Leona is incredibly tanky. Remember, one of the buffs that she received was the tankiness on her W, while Pyke has nothing. Nada. If you go right in on top of him, he's an easy kill. In fact, I expected Blaber to be playing towards the bottom side inevitably, because mid and top side were actually going to be difficult to go for kills. But you already saw how fragile how paperwork it was going to be for bottom lane.
Yeah, and I will own it up here. I did vote for KaBuM, and they lost, and I thought their only big condition would be the fact that they would be able to swing it in their favor bottom lane. That didn't happen, and what we didn't see in this replay, Mark, was that, you know, they just went a bit too ham. You know, Chitan took a tower shot for no reason. They gave up a lot of their lane pressure before this.
That was the problem, and also Ranger not helping out during that time period. So when they had their biggest window to make a play, they didn't. Now, C9 wasn't perfect either, of course. You see in these replays just walking forward multiple times in the deep vision without the entire team there. And yeah, KaBuM ready for it, which they deserve a lot of credit for, to have these brush baits going. But this is the kind of thing where if you're a C9 fan, you're happy you're in the playing stage to iron some of these little problems out with their rookies.
Well, how much is this worrying you? I think they still played a fantastic game, C9. When you see this, is this worrying or is this just okay? This is the first game of the team on the Rift. This is something that will get ironed out.
For me, I think the recovery was a lot more telling. The recovery around saying, okay, Baron's up, stab it. Just like, take all your chips and move it towards the Baron area. I thought that was really well done. So you're right. The younger players, a lot more rash, specifically Blaber, making those mistakes. Reaper's like, all right, now that the belt is off, moving on to the next few games, it's going to be a lot better.
Yeah, it was very telling where at 20 minutes into the game, it was the 3 rookies with the 3 deaths for C9, and all of them kind of coming off face checks. And so I'm not too worried because I think some of that's just like jitters. You're doing well, you're happy. Maybe your communication isn't exactly like, what brush are they in? And you're just like, all right, this is going well. So
I think I agree. And to come back to your point, the way C9 recovered or kept playing the game after that is really what indicated to me that they were feeling confident. And our next replay is going to be a fight exactly in the top lane where they get drawn into a bit of a dicey situation where KaBuM wants to engage on them, but they turn it around and play it out magnificently.
Yeah, and I want to start off by saying this is great from KaBuM because trying to set up for plays around Riyev's pick potential, you'd like to see this out of a team when they are behind. That being said, they're behind. And pretty damn far behind at that. So the collapse coming through from C9 was well enough to be able to hammer the game over.
Right, there was a moment where if they were able to land the initial CC, you kill him before this collapse comes in, but he ended up burning out underneath the turret, and that bought enough time for C9 to get in. And then if you're a C9 fan, what you're happy to see is the aggressiveness that comes after consistently punishing them around this Baron buff for walking forward at different times on the side of KaBuM. And they end up getting a full ace after what was just initially a couple kills.
Yeah, I think wonderful first game from C9. When we look at KaBuM and knowing that they have to play another game very shortly against Detonation Focus Me, it is the 3rd game of the day. What are kind of the immediate things that you'd like to see change out of this lineup?
I would say a lot more tempered play. From Ranger, we've seen it throughout the CB LoL that he's actually a really good
I'm just going to put something against that because tempered play, when in this game, what I felt was really missing is the opposite. I felt it was missing that Ranger wasn't visiting his lanes and trying to do something.
And ultimately, my point is that he needs to have that back. He had it once before in the CB LoL, but this game, non-existent. His pressure towards the bottom lane, I didn't see him. And so going up against the squad from the LJL, what they do need is smarter play because there's going to be a much slower game from them. Steal, the team plays around him. So if you're playing around your jungler, and in the last game, we didn't see that out of Ranger, he doesn't want to be picked apart again.
More Ranger in the next game.
I think part of that problem was to just how the top side went. Like Licorice crushed his top side. This is a guy who was the all-pro runner-up 2 splits in a row, and it's no surprise he had a pretty monstrous first game.
Yeah, he's also our MasterCard player of the game, Licorice. We talked a lot about the rookies coming in, and this guy absolutely crushed it. I was asking you about the matchup specifically, Mark, and you said, well, it's a skill matchup, and the help of Blaber early helped. But not to take anything away from this guy. Yeah,
I mean, Urgot Aatrox is one that can go either way, and it really went Licorice's favor. It got 1 gank in the early game, forced a flash, and built that to almost 100 CS lead, taking turrets before some of the oopsies started coming in, but was still a monster in the team fights that happened after.
Yeah, and they could always rely on the push that he had in the side lanes. Ultimately, if once all the lanes are going wrong, play towards the winning matchup towards Aatrox. So I thought it was really good. Great game plan off of him.
Yeah, fantastic for C9 just to button it up. This is all we wanted to see from them, I think, in the first game. Confident game, maybe a bit of jitters here and there, but keeping the map play and being sure that you are a better team and you should be a better team than a lot of these teams because you are coming out of the NALCS as 3rd seed. You have such a pedigree. I think it's a great start, all things considered.
Yeah, and I think I feel a lot better now as an NA fan. You know, got that first win. I got my mission completed because I had it up on the screen here.
Oh
so
my
I think
God.
You're winning left, right, and center.
I know, it feels great as an NA fan right now.
Yeah.
I'm not getting anything over there in China. I'm just losing a lot of points.
You should have put your computer on. That's yeah, indeed. So if we look at the group holistically, of course, top top two rather, out of the three go through. C9 looks like they have very good cards. Of course, we're gonna have to see when Detonation Focus Me plays KaBuM later, what that looks like. Do you guys have any feeling as to how this one's gonna play out?
Major stylistic differences between the two. Right now, I have KaBuM taking it, but after that loss, they need to be able to bounce back. And if we're talking about them being momentum-driven based off of their performance in the CB LoL, then this is a pretty bad kick to them, going up against a fresh team down there.
Yeah, but I do think I saw enough okay stuff out of them. Like, I thought Chitan had a very good laning phase before, like kind of overstaying a little bit. And then they did have good playmaking to bounce back in that game, finding these picks, and then one pick didn't work out. But like, they didn't let the fact that they were falling behind C9 cause them to clam up, which some teams do when they start losing on the big stage. They lose their playmaking potential. But I didn't see that out of them, which bodes well in the future.
Yeah, we'll see how KaBuM evolves. And great start for Cloud9. We're going to step away for just a couple of minutes, but make sure that you're tweeting out how you're watching Worlds, whether you're grabbing a beer in Bruges or pulling an all-nighter in Portland. Send us your setup with the hashtag HowIWorld, and we will share some of our favorites on the broadcast later. For now, though, a couple of minutes break. We'll be right back with